Hi, everyone who's just joining us. Sorry if you had trouble getting in. I'm not sure what was going on with the technology, but I'm glad you were able to come in. We'll get started in just a moment. I think I can see people rolling in. So thanks so much for being here. We'll get started in a little bit. Again, for those just joining, thank you so much for your patience. We'll get started in just 1 or 2 minutes.
Hello and welcome to Blue Hour, presented by the Chicago Poetry Center. My name is Helene Achanzar, and I'm the Director of Programs at the Chicago Poetry Center. At CPC, our mission is to connect people with poetry, to equitably engage poets with communities, and to foster creativity and literacy in schools. We achieve this mission through 3 programs. First, our education program brings poetry residencies, assemblies, and workshops to schools, libraries, and community centers. Second, our critical Conversations at Work program engages adults with poetry through an anti-racism framework. Finally, our reading series connects poets from Chicago and beyond with audiences all over the city. Thank you for joining us as we relaunch our reading series in this virtual space. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce your host, Marty McConnell. Marty McConnell is the author of When They Say You Can't Go Home Again, What They Mean Is You Were Never There, winner of the 2017 Michael Waters Poetry Prize. Her first full-length collection, Wine for a Shotgun, received the silver medal in the Independent Publishers Award and was a finalist for both the Audre Lorde Award and a Lambda Literary Award. Yes Yes Books recently released her nonfiction book, Gathering Voices, creating a community-based poetry workshop. She is the co-creator and co-editor of Underbelly, a website focused on the art and magic of poetry and revision. Please welcome Marty McConnell.
Thanks, Helene. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited to launch this reading series and workshop series. I'm been a big fan of the Chicago Poetry Center for a really long time. And actually, Maya Marshall and I, who are the co-editors of Underbelly, were I believe the last people to feature in the Poetry Center reading series live before the pandemic shut down. So I should put that in my bio as well. I wish I could see all your faces, and maybe we'll figure out a way to make that work in these going forward. But just a couple quick logistical things. We have 2 amazing features for you tonight. I will introduce them momentarily, but they are Mayda del Valle and Hannah Gamble. At any time, feel free to access the chat as a way to introduce yourself. I'd love it if everybody who's here would just drop in the chat your name and where you are dialing in from, as a way to sort of just have a sense of who's in the room. And also throughout the reading, feel free to enter applause, excitements, words or lines you love as a way just for us to feel a little more in the space together. And also, as the reading is going on, feel free in the Q&A box to answer any question or to ask any questions you might have, because we will have a little bit of time at the end for a Q&A portion. So I will be pulling questions from those to ask our featured readers at the end. This is the Blue Hour reading series and workshop series. The term Blue Hour comes from lines from an amazing poem by Li Young Lee. The lines are, I wait in a blue hour and a faraway noise of hammering, and on a page a poem begun, something about to be dispersed, something about to come into being. So that just felt appropriate for a reading series that is really about uplifting voices, and also a workshop that is about generating new work. With that, I just want to beg your technical patience, which you've already extended to us with our weird link issue, but also just as we do this for the very first time, thank you for being here, for being patient and gracious. So we're going to start off by hearing from Hannah Gamble. Hannah, she, they, is a poet, essayist, screenwriter, and director. Her first book of poems, Your Invitation to a Modest Breakfast, won the National Poetry Series in 2011. In 2014, they received the Ruth Lilly Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Fellowship from the Poetry Foundation. Hannah's second book of poems, The Traditional Feel of the Ballroom, is now available from Trio House Press. Additionally, Gamble is the writer, director, and executive producer of the Chicago-based web series Choose Me, an abortion story, which you should all watch, which was selected for several national and international film festivals, winning several awards, including the Award of Excellence for a TV show from the Montreal Independent Film Festival and a Best Web Series Award from the Miami International Film Festival in 2020. So I am going to cease talking and invite Hannah to join us and grace us with her poems.
Hello, hi everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am gonna read a few poems from my new book, which Marty's already mentioned, but I wanted to just show you what the cover looks like because a friend helped me find a really great painter, a queer painter named Mariangela Laton. And I commissioned this painting of a person riding a snail dressed in flowers. Yeah. Okay. So gonna read a few poems here, starting with penis is a transitive verb. Penis is a transitive verb, and that is why I have to be a man in all my poems. I am the subject because I am the one making all the things happen, and this is why grammar is one of my favorite things. I know there's nothing passive about a whole. There's nothing passive about the object to which happens the verb or to which the preposition carries the gift. The post was standing still and the whole worked really hard to sidle up around it and then to hold it. That's never easy. Everything is really more work than you'd expect. Keeping additional dirt out, well, that's basically it, but there is a lot of dirt blown towards a hole. Metaphors aside, sometimes I think I better fill me up. So I do, and then there's no room for anyone to get inside. So then there's more work to be done. Becoming a whole again is hard, and it's a service and a vote of confidence in the other. Some soils always lost in each transfer, plenty of back and forths each season, but lucky for me and you and everyone, there's always something scraping, aging, crushing, and shitting. So there's always more dirt. Do you know what I was like before I met you? Ignorant, solitary, serene, sort of godlike in those respects. If I could see all of your faces, I would ask for a show of hands as for who loves the dreamy, synthy, nonsensical, artsy, pop band from the 80s, the Cocteau Twins. I don't even know what that kind of music is called, but I totally fell in love with it in college. And they might be the only band I've ever referenced in a poem. So that'll be somewhere in here. This poem is called A Tiny Spot. A tiny spot of blood on my shirt is not the subject of this poem. I felt sick knowing I'd said what I didn't mean, and then dreamt about having said exactly what I meant. And oh, look, everything worked out fine. You are wrong if you think a girl making up her own language after something that she never wants to talk about happens to her is the subject of this poem. I receive emails all the time and physical mail too, so don't tell me that my life isn't full of feeling cared for and feeling safe. Or alternatively, knowing that if in this moment a gray horse came charging down Chicago's streets, I could stop that horse in her tracks and ask for a ride and be given it. And not even have to wear a coat because joy conducts heat like the perfect thing someone says when you're upset. Though in other situations it would sound like an insult, but in that moment it's kind because the truth is a service and a vote of confidence that you can take it. You don't even have to clean yourself up very much for someone who knows you. Horse, when I saw you charging past the ice cream vendor, streaming sweat, eyes mostly white with panic and strength, anger and exhaustion, my mind reached out to you and called out to you with my name. I cannot see a clock in this webinar anymore, and to be just very honest with you, that is terrifying me right now. But I have plans to read 3 more poems. Marty, you can message me if it just needs to be 2. Okay, cool, thank you. All right, well, in our hearts, just show of hands who is anxious. I can't imagine anyone coming to a poetry reading. I don't mean anxious right now. I mean like generally as one of your default human settings. I can't imagine anyone who's not anxious on a regular basis attending a poetry reading. That's all. But here's a poem about that experience as a tightness. It's not exactly that someone has died or that even surrounded by tiny potted plants sent to the farmhouse in prospective sympathy, they will die. It's instead that the collar, buttoned as a choice to look clean and like the day is no threat, makes this weight exactly where I don't want it, as I try to think that breathing is no difficult thing, that life is absolutely a door that someone opened to give me a lovely time, a period of 80 years or so, wherein I will be allowed to experience love and be given so much love that I sometimes will have to step back, don a grandpa sweater vest kind of head shaking smile and say, thank you, I've got to sit down. And of course, everyone would understand that they'd done well They'd done such a good job of loving me that my heart had hardly enough elastic, was hardly prepared. It's just that all my clothes seemed to keep me from breathing, even my shoes. It's good to look around and see the ways other people manage to forget about what they surely must experience as a tightness. This one searches for the most beautiful tie clips online. Another might approach the receptionist desk to talk about how he's a pretty good singer. People always tell him so. What I'd like to know is why parties, holidays, and parades always leave me thinking that it's kind of intimate dealing with other people's garbage. The same person who would jerk back if she thought I was about to touch her would still let me carry her cup to the kitchen when her mouth's been all over it. This poem is called Empty Movie Theater. And it might be the only poem I've ever written or published anyway that involves what was hilariously called in the olden days, I guess, as maybe a marital aid. I think that's what people used to call sex toys. All right. Empty movie theater. There are days where everything you think you are decides to cool it. You tell your friend to take you to the suburbs so you can experience his dog and his house and meet his parents who come home in time to meet you and order a pizza. Other days, you just want a vibrating cock ring and a friend who'll forgive every sappy, desperate thing you say while you're inside her. You want to go to your friend's wedding, but there will be too many people there who don't want to see you. No one will be able to act normally. They are artistic and extremely intelligent, living their lives with enough self-awareness to electrocute a pig and enough self-loathing to desiccate all the fat muscle of a fringe-wearing professional wrestler. If you think there's no one more like a blister, I ask you to consider the mental and emotional counterpart to the greased up wrestler's body. And now we're back in Houston, Texas, with the writers, where everyone's drunk, everyone's being all the funny that smart allows. You remember meeting them and thinking you'd found what your stepmother would call your tribe. You'd learned about tribes in an anthropology class. Sometimes it's the person who never shares the meat he's caught, who's called a witch and sent away to starve. And sometimes it's the king who wasn't able to keep his promises. Some tribes hate braggarts the most, and some tribes hate the man who only knows one joke or always tells the same story of the same girl who loved him immediately, gave him happiness, and never became any less wonderful. You have to wonder how any tribe survives, sending away so many of its own. The answer: most tribes have a holy man who keeps a basket, and inside that basket is every sound the exiled make when stepping on a stone in the night or being frightened by a tree branch. The tribe's people are kept company by these noises, and after listening, often feel as if they've eaten a large meal. I'm going to read my last poem, actually, from my first book. Thanks again, everyone, for coming, and yeah, that's all. Okay, your invitation to a modest breakfast. It's too cold to smoke outside. But if you come over, I'll keep my hands to myself, or won't I? I would like to tell you about the wall eaten up by the climbing plant. It was so beautiful. Various things have been happening to me, all of them sexual. The man on the bus took off his pants so I could see him better. Another man said, "Ignore him, darling, just sit on my lap." But I'm not one of those who's hungriest in the morning, unlike the man at the bakery who eats egg after egg after egg. Listen, come over. The cold has already eaten the summer. I need another pair of ears. From the kitchen, I can't tell if I'm hearing wind chimes or some gray woman with failing arms dropping a pan full of onions and potatoes. This morning, I need 4 hands, 2 to wash the greens, 1 to lift a tea kettle, 1 to pour the milk. This morning, 1 little mouth will not do. We could play a game where we crouch on the tiles, 2 yellow dogs drinking coffee from bowls. We could play a game where we let the breakfast burn. Outside, there's a world where every love scene begins with a man in a doorway. He walks over to the woman and says, "Open your mouth." Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much. Oh, that was life sustaining. I'm so, so grateful to have started there. And I'm also very excited to bring to our virtual stage Mayda del Valle, a proud native of the South Side of Chicago. Mayda appeared on 6 episodes of HBO's Deaf Poetry Jam and was a contributing writer and original cast member of the Tony Award-winning Deaf Poetry Jam on Broadway. She also toured with Norman Lear's Declare Yourself Spoken Word Tour, a nonprofit, nonpartisan project created to encourage young voter registration for the 2004 presidential elections. That was a time when Mayda and I lived on a tour bus together. Fun stories. In May of 2009, she was invited to perform at the White House for the President and First Lady. She has been featured in Latina Magazine, The Source, The New York Times, and was named by Smithsonian Magazine as one of America's young innovators in the arts and sciences. Oprah's O Magazine selected her as one of 20 women for their first ever O Power list, a group of visionary women making a mark in business, politics, and the arts. Hi, Mayda. Thanks for
Hi.
being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I wish I could see you all. This is so strange to not to not see anyone on the screen. I feel like I'm performing to myself on the Zoom call. But I trust that you were all there, as I see that there are 26 people in the room. So it is a pleasure to meet you all virtually, and I will share a few poems with you. So I'm gonna share a couple of pieces from my book, A Southside Girl's Guide to Love and Sex. And I will start with this one, which is called Why You Talk Like That, or the etymology of where are you really from? Because it's a language of necessity, because it's translating from my father at the Social Security office and my mother having a Reader's Digest subscription for over 30 years. Because I grew up on 64th in California, because I went to an Ivy League and clutched onto the South Side the way a hawk grasps its prey, hunting the hood in my dialect every time I came back home and the homie said, "You sound white right now, like you're not from here anymore. Because you're so regional, you sound so Chicago, and you speak English so well. How did you learn?" Because folks know I'm from where I'm from when I say shit like pop and draw the car in Chicago, because I got a lineage of brujas sing-songing their black cat, calling conjurations caught on my incisors, because I code switch between magic and academic, because I coño carajo me cago and not feel like it, because Oakland gave me hella even though I've never lived there, because que, por qué, que pasó, que hace nada, quien eres, because the world thinks I'm nada, thinks brown girls are nada, nadie, nobody thinks they gotta listen, so I extra lip smack away the silence with a head swing in Spanglish and motherfuckers fuck Fania salsa, slip my way across this bridge I live on. And then I will read an ode to one of my favorite things to wear, which is the door knocker earrings, which I don't have on today, but you will usually see me wearing some sort of really large earring as an accessory. So this is an ode to door knocker earrings. All golden and round, the way girl, all bent metal circular crown, a flash, me queen dangling from oral bass boom receivers, all hood, honey drop hoops. Oh, precious metal display of ego. Oh, golden calf circumference of chingona chola confidence. Oh, amulet incantation of my name. Set in malleable metallurgical mix of alloy, alchemy. I don't think they did my name in 14 karat, but fuck it. I steady rock the tarnish anyway, anywhere. When I meet my creator, dress me in fat laces, a bandera de lares, and my downtown LA swap meet gold weighed in ounces. Yeah, I rock the name my mama gave me on my ear. Yeah, I wore white tux and gold bamboos to shake the president's hand, and what? Gilded ghetto regalia, ladies first, regal steez, B-girl couture, Louis Vuitton, please. The bigger the hoop, the bigger the, call me out my name, say my name, say my name. Those that can't say my name, it's on my earring, B, just read it. All gold, all precious mineral on precious skin, body adornment, no delicate, dainty V's, my royal jewels. And this piece is called After School Special. There was the blue hoopty, always the blue hoopty. Maybe it had a name, I don't remember. Let's call it Electric Youth, the Blue Avenger, the Blue Star. I do remember the radio wires poking out like stubborn metal hair, hand-rigged to the kicker box in the trunk Joe had bought that summer on Maxwell Street in Jewtown when he suddenly came up on some extra money. The Blue Bullet, a home of sorts, make-out nest, weed den, strategy room, storage space for spray cans, rolled up linoleum and Puma windbreakers, a sputtering stallion of duct tape and cassette mixtapes on Maxell magnetic ribbons, the chill spot on wheels where we steady stayed sinning. Joe picked me up after school. Maybe I lied about having theater rehearsal or a French club meeting. Maybe I used 25 cents on the payphone we weren't supposed to use during school hours and left the 911 code on his beeper. Beepers, this was a very long time ago. Whatever, we sat in the safety of the blue Honda, September, October maybe, when the last ghosts of summer cling to the rains that pull down the first leaves of fall, shrouding themselves in flashes of gold and rust in Marquette Park, always the park where we made out after dates at Gertie's for chili dogs and ice cream. And there was a song, always a song on the radio. Far Side just dropped, can't keep running away. Can't keep running away, a 1-2, so listen here, there comes a time in every man's life when he's gotta handle shit up on his own. 1, windshield, wiping rain, water, and Catholic school fear condensing on the inside of the windows. 2, my period's late and my mom asked me if I was pregnant this morning. So listen here, I don't remember the words exactly, just that we weren't having sex yet, just virginal dry humping. But legend had it, according to someone's sister or cousin or that creep-ass greasy teacher in room 208, that if you dry humped hard enough, one rogue sperm could work its way through 2 layers of underwear and get you pregnant in immaculate conception. And there I was, 16 and scared, a shroud, leaf shaken from its tree and wanting to run. And I believed it all. Believed my mother's accusatory stares, believed the body that was betraying me with an irregular period, believed the nuns and teachers who considered us all hormone-ravaged daughters of Eve. And I had seen what happened to pregnant girls at school, how they were suddenly no longer student council secretary, how everyone stared, how their eyes puffed red, swole on the regular, along with the belly, how the diploma came without the walk across the stage, how they disappeared without an explanation, how my mother said once, that's what they deserve for betraying their parents and the Catholic Church. Raise your hand if you survived Catholic school. This next piece is called Being Carmen's Daughter. Primero, it's hablando in whatever language fits your need at the moment. It's stories about an unbalanced spirit-seeing grandmother, about crinoline ruffled slips covered in Caribbean floral prints. It's baby daughter to a baby daughter. It's your best outfit and shoes made to last more than a decade. It's becoming a repository of family recipes. It's laughter, louder than everyone else in the room, ghosts in the corner, speaking of the dead with reverence and wonder. It's dreams about weddings, meaning death is around the corner. It's Catholic hymns and rose-scented rosaries. It's Virgin Mary litanies. It's food and arthritic hands pressing milk out of ground coconut. It's clean. It's bleach and mops and vacuums and no dust anywhere. And I have to go home and clean. It's keep your legs closed. Don't trust anyone, not even your own 2 feet. It's don't depend on any man. It's I wish I could haves that bloom, break and bleed and unfulfilled, unheard possibilities. And this is a piece called This Is How the City Began to Slip. I left Chicago 18 years ago, gone the same amount of time I lived there. All I have are soft focus vignettes of a 17-year-old girl, more mythic than anything else. I dress her in memory, the city veiled in nostalgia. Like the way my mother talks about leaving Puerto Rico at 17, how all her memories are soft focus vignettes, chirping birds, blooming tropical flowers, sunsets, and the light strains of a guitar strumming jibaro music like some sort of Boricua Disney princess movie. Like the way her memory contradicts the reality of the island now, bass-heavy reggaeton rattling highways surgically slicing into mountainsides, polluted rivers, and gruesome murders. The city I left doesn't exist anymore. The boys I liked are married with children. The train lines we used as playgrounds barricaded behind security cameras. Sears Tower is Willis. Comiskey, now Cellular Field, I think they renamed it again. Gertie's on 59th, a cell phone store. Chicago's a corporation. Our neighborhood of 10 years, our neighbors of 10 years are getting foreclosed on. Mad houses sit empty and shuttered on my folks' block, red brick bungalows staring into the winter snow mud. My mother prays every day to get the fuck out too. Every doubled, tripled, quadrupled utility bill strains her social security pension income. Every winter seems colder than the last. Every inch of skin seems thinner against the ice, but I always come back like a prodigal daughter, sometimes feeling like I'm from here, some days thinking it's the only place that could ever be home, the only place that really knows me. And I am going to read one last poem. Thank you all for listening. Looking forward to answering some questions and hearing what everyone else has to say. But this is another ode. This is also an ode poem, and this is an ode to one of my favorite items, one of my favorite objects. It is Latino's disciplinary tool of choice, and you will find this object across cultures and households on the whole planet. So this is an ode to the chancla, or the flip-flop, a little rubber flip-flop, if anybody knows what a chancla is. Molded plastic straps spreading like a slingshot across the arc of metatarsal. Oh, what symmetry, what thong that creeps into the vortex of hallux and phalanges and rubs my toe pit raw. $2 Kmart Payless Wonder turn Louboutin-like staple of I don't give a fuck fashion. Oh, how island fashionistas bow to your hourglass-shaped chancla. Oh, summertime messiah that saves the soles of our feet from blistering sand. Oh, you fly swatter. Oh, you roach killer. Oh, you cobweb remover. Oh, you foot fungus shower shoe shield, door stopper, ping pong paddle replacement. Praise the form of foam. The welcome cushion you offer daily, like warm bread to the calloused bunion toes of tias and abuelas who fling and flick you, fuacata and fuete, the faces and nalgas of unruly mocosos and malcriados. Ay, chancla, better you than the belt. Better you than the hand, the fist, or the switch. O pliant apparatus of corporal punishment, rubber manifestation of intergenerational trauma, intermediary of family drama, the seventh styrofoam steel that makes you run out of reach of mommy's impending, mira coño, get your ass over here before you really get it, Armageddon, ay bendito, what music, what rhythm, what chancleta, flip, flop, cadence when you onomatopoeia your own name with every polymerized latex lip smack on pavement. Thank you all so much. Marty, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayda. I'd like to invite Mayda and Hannah to come back on screen. And I want to invite everybody in the room to, if you have questions that you'd like to ask, we have a few minutes here before we transition over into our workshop setting to answer any questions. In case anybody is, so I should have mentioned this at the beginning, right? So we have our reading series portion, and then we will have a separate portion where we will do a generative writing workshop. So hopefully the link for that one will work better. Anyway, so let's start with this question that came through. Who's your beloved reader, if you have one? Who, if anyone, do you write in hopes of reaching? Who wants to start?
I could say, I just figured out the answer to this question based on what would get me the most excited when I realized, like, oh, they're reading my poems, and that is teenagers. I got to go down to Humboldt Park, and there's a military academy there called Phoenix Military Academy, I think. And I went there and I did some poetry workshops with them. I read to them. At one point, I was reading a poem to them, and they were all painting together, like walking around in a big circle, painting on the same long like trail of like poster board or something. It was so cool. So I just really, I hope that teens read my work. And that was one reason when I was commissioning the book cover, I'm like sort of a nudist at heart, and I never wear clothes if I don't have to. And so I was very tempted. And I'm also like a big proponent of like non-sexual nudity, that just like you can be naked and not be like inviting like whatever kind of attention, like just bodies, like it feels good to be in the air. Anyway, I was considering having like the image of the woman riding the snail, just totally naked. But then I thought, oh my God, if that would keep this book out of classrooms, if there was the occasional like high school English teacher that wants to share their poems with my students, I don't want like some nipples to impede that. So yeah, those are my beloved readers, are like kind of older kids, honestly.
I love that.
I was, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. And I, now that I heard you say that, I'm like, Jesus, I really wish I would have like rethought the name and title to this book, because clearly this kept it out of a lot of high schools. But like I would say maybe my beloved reader is like my 15-year-old self, who was always looking for books. And I think Toni Morris says something about that, right? Like write the book that you wish you could have read when you were a young person. And I just remember walking into a bookstore in the Connection, like the basement of Fort City back in the 90s. It was a really small Black-owned bookstore. And they had a book in there by Sonia Sanchez, which is the first book of poetry I ever got, which is I've Been a Woman, Like, the hell was my 15-year-old self reading this book? But I was just like, I've been a woman. What does this mean? And I bought the book. So hopefully, some 15 or 16-year-old girl sees this and just be like, oh, I want to read that book. So yeah, very, very similar. I think young women or young people who identify as young women who are looking to see and maybe hear themselves and in the pages of books that they don't often find themselves in.
All right, well, we've got time for one more question. So we'll go to this from G.S. Murphy. This is for both of you. What poet is burning in your eyes currently? What poet do you have to rip open the wrapper to read? I feel like it's a good one to end on there. And it's also like, I also want to acknowledge that this is always a question where whenever I'm asked something like this, immediately I'm like, have I ever read a book? All like, all names immediately go out of my head. So you could also just be like, this is my eternal favorite.
Well, so I haven't been reading much poetry lately, but I will tell you the last thing that made me weep with happiness, that was, accessing the things that poetry accesses. It just was a drag show. But on HBO, there's a show called We're Here with Bob the Drag Queen and Shangela and Eureka, and they go to kind of conservative rural places where honestly they do suffer a bit of abuse. That's not really focused on in the show, but it's true. And they connect with local queers who like haven't really gotten to come out in the most full and beautiful way. And they put them in drag and they perform alongside them in a show for the whole community. So Bob the Drag Queen was working with, I believe it was someone in South Carolina, like Columbia, South Carolina. She was like the only Black female tattoo artist in the whole city. And she had this girlfriend named Shaniqua, who was just really quiet, and the family hadn't totally embraced and accepted Shaniqua. They were just like treating her as a friend kind of, and just kind of not talking about the fact that the tattoo artist lady was a lesbian. So Bob the Drag Queen basically took the most minor of role in the stage show, and his whole role was unpeeling this tattoo artist from a bunch of leaves to reveal the flower that she was. And she steps out and then she invites Shaniqua on stage. They're playing what's that song? To make you feel my love, and then tattoo artist lady and Shaniqua just like slow dance. They're both crying. I'm crying. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And it's so amazing too to see the star of the show just completely pull themselves back to give someone else this really beautiful moment. So to be honest, that's better than any poem I've read super recently. So there you have it.
It's definitely at least in the poetic category. And also I feel like now you're tasked to write a poem about it. Cool. Great.
Could I make any improvements, or would it just be like,
yeah, how do we do
sitting on something that was perfect as it was? But I love your idea, Marty. I will consider.
That's all I ask, is for you to consider it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Hannah, thank you for answering these questions, because I'm just like, oh my God, she just like gave me permission to just be like, yeah, I haven't really been writing poems lately, writing either, but reading any in a while. But I did pick up, I haven't had a chance to sit down with it, but I picked up Elizabeth Velasquez's new book, When We Make It, which is a novel and young YA novel in verse. So I'm excited about reading that. There's a couple of pieces in there that are really beautiful. So, but let's see, the last really poetic thing, Euphoria. Like everyone had been talking about Euphoria, and I finally binge watched it a couple of weeks ago. And I'm like super fangirling Zendaya, which also ties into like what I'm actually reading right now, which is Dune, because I'm kind of a sci-fi geek, and she's about to be in the movie. So I'm just like, so excited. So again, I think it comes out tomorrow, but I'm not done with the book. And my friend just wrote me and he's like, we're gonna go see the movie tomorrow. I was like, I can't see it, I'm not done with the book. So yeah, so big sci-fi geek, big fan, fangirling on Zendaya. Euphoria was amazing, especially that last episode of the season, which is like unlike anything I've ever seen like in a television episode. It's just like not gonna give anyone spoilers, but it's beautiful. And yeah, and when we make it, which I'm looking forward to reading.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean, like, we have this notion, right? I mean, not to put down this question. The question's amazing, and I am generally somebody who's sort of like, I will not shut up about whatever book I'm currently, consuming. And I know you're both sort of the same way, but it's like we are really at all times, like ideally as artists, right? Like taking in from all these different modes, right? Like thinking about, like I'm looking at this visual art and I'm watching, this film, and I'm reading this like weird nonfiction book about string theory, right? It's all part and parcel of this, right? And there are definitely, I know in my life, been times when I'm like, I must be reading poetry or I am not like a poet right now. And it's not true. At the same time, buy poets' books, buy Mayda's book, buy Hannah's book. Do those things. Also, watch Choose Me, an abortion story. Still available. One should watch it. Am I missing any plugs before we sign off? Anything, Mayda or Hannah, that you want to share with the group? We're all good.
Follow me on Instagram.
Yay. Yes.
Yay.
I'm
Awesome.
there too.
Let's all be Instagram friends. Let's do that. It is 2020. It's almost 2022. Let's be on the socials together. Wonderful. Thank you all so much, everybody out there in audience land, for joining us. I will see some of you in about 10 minutes in the workshop room. For anybody who is going over to the workshop space, if that link is not working, check your email. I'm going to resend a link just in case very soon. But this has been the inaugural edition of the Blue Hour presented by the Chicago Poetry Center. Thank you so much for being here. Stay tuned. Our next one of these will be November 10th, features TBD, and we'll see you soon. Thanks so much. Have a great night.